One of the new papers that's available for crafting and also specifically for sewing is this thick paper that's quite stiff called Craftex. These are the bland colors, but they also now have come out with very bright colors, and you can sew wallets, tote bags, baskets, backpacks, all kinds of things. Now the paper starts out really thick and really stiff. You can see it's not much like fabric at all. But it can be washed, it can be crumpled, it can be manipulated, and it softens so that it becomes a lot more like fabric with use. I'm going to show you one of the ideas I wanted to play with, and that is to make a little zipper bag, either for makeup, pencils, whatever, carry in a purse. So with these being bland colors, we need a bright top stitching color, right? Right. Again, same as we did on the paper. Line that up wherever we think we need to line it up to make the seam that we want. And again, I'm using my red mark on the foot and a longer stitch. Now we're going to top stitch to join these two pieces of Craftex paper. Just sewing a straight line, just like top stitching. And you hear my machine is a little noisy. Crunching through the paper makes a little extra noise. Bright orange top stitching. Very sturdy, does not come apart, just like sewing fabric. And it can be ironed. If you need to clean it, you can use a damp washcloth and crumple it, wrinkle it, iron it, bring it back, comes a little softer. I've made a lot of zipper bags over the years, and you basically start with two rectangles. Now notice the overall shape is a rectangle. And to keep it more interesting, I changed the angle here to incorporate two different colors of the Craftex paper. But after I top stitched one onto the other, I cut it so that it would be a rectangle. I did the same thing with the second piece. Brown with the gray, and lined these up so that they are exactly the same size, basically. So the rule in sewing is you always sew right sides together, then turn them inside out. That way your seam is on the inside. So when I join two rectangles, I will sew on the wrong side, and the right sides are facing each other, and then I will turn it inside out. Now ignore the zipper for a minute. When I'm ready, I'm going to sew down this line that I drew for myself, about 3/8 of an inch over here, and 3/8 of an inch over here, 3/8 across the bottom. Then I will turn this inside out through the open zipper. There are a number of YouTube videos that show you how to make the zipper bags with and without lining. And after you've had some experience with them, you'll see it really is 3 to 4 steps and you're done. You've got a zipper bag. At this point, it's time to put the zipper on the top on one rectangle. Then the second step will be to attach to the second rectangle. If you're sewing a zipper along a straight edge like this and no seams here, it's pretty straightforward. It's just like top stitching, like we have done with our other pieces. Just remember to put on your zipper foot so that you have clearance for the zipper. Now I also need to move my needle over so I'm not hitting the foot, but that'll work right there.
Can you pause?
Now, you notice that here I have pins in this paper, even though I said try not to use pins because it'll leave needle marks, holes. But this paper is so thick and this zipper is so bulky that I couldn't find a more useful, effective way of holding these two pieces together. Scotch tape did not work. So I've put the pins right along here where I'm hoping these holes will be hidden under the stitching from the top stitching. Here goes. And I will try a little back stitch. Now, the kick is to always have this outside edge even with the edge of the paper or the fabric that you're sewing onto. So I'll just go slow and eyeball it. Always take your pins out before your needle gets too close. You don't want to stitch over pins. That's how we get broken needles and sometimes very unhappy sewing machines. Now we're coming to another problem with the zipper, and that is this big part of the zipper pull will bump against this and kind of make our seam go wonky. So at this point, you just pull it out of the way. Put the foot back down and finish. There it is. Zipper is attached by a very simple line of top stitching. Just like we top stitched these two pieces of fabric, but they're not really fabric, these two pieces of Craft Tex paper that act like fabric. So we have the half the zipper sewn to one of the rectangles. Now we're going to sew it to the other rectangle. Now I'm attaching the second rectangle again to the zipper and trying to make sure that the brown line is equidistant away from the orange teeth as it was over here. Again, it's not worth measuring, I just eyeball it. So I had lined it up. There's the zipper, here's the rectangle. The important part is that these two line up and that it's straight, of course, and about equidistance. And again, you saw me using pins before because this is thick and there's no good way to attach these two while I am trying to get them sewn. Now you might notice that I'm using these odd pins. They are not like regular sewing pins with a small head. I need a large shaft and I need a big head. So I like these button pins because I can pull them. Gives me something to hold on to. Now, like I said, over here with the stitching, you cannot really see where the holes were from the pins that we put in the paper. I think these 3 pins will be enough. It's time to sew the second side, and I've moved my zipper foot over. And same thing, I'm going to line up the side of the zipper foot with the edge of the brown craft fabric. And sew. And like before, take your pins out. Sometimes, that's why I need a large head to have enough oomph to pull it out. You can see maybe there's a pinhole there, but we are hoping the stitching will cover it up enough that it won't be too visible. Needle down. Let's pull the zipper pull back out of the way. Hold this closely so it doesn't gap. There it is, sewn on that side, sewn on that side. Now what we do is turn it like this, right sides together, line up the sides here, and the bottom, and I will probably pin these in the margin, because that way it will not show. Or I will use clips to hold them firmly in place. And you can see where I have drawn my seam line, side, bottom, other side. So I come up right next to the zipper. Then I need to make sure I have the zipper open before I sew all 3 sides. And then I will turn the bag right side out, and the bottom will push up through the zipper, and I'll turn everything inside out. Now that's easy to do with fabric. It is not easy to do with the craft text paper. So what I will do is dampen this. I'll need to get a sponge and a little water and dampen it and dampen it and dampen it until it is soft enough that I can turn it inside out through the zipper, then let it dry. Then I can actually press it with an iron. Most paper can be ironed with an iron on a low setting. Here's the completed pouch made out of the craft text paper, which is almost like cardboard, but kind of like leather. Now again, I had to dampen this to be able to turn it inside out after I sewed these seams because it's so stiff, but then it stiffens back up, but it's a little crinkled. The idea is it's supposed to look like leather. I actually prefer cork compared to the craft text paper. It acts more like fabric and there's no wrinkling. And you can treat it like fabric. You can press it, actually iron it, you can sew it, you can manipulate it, you can add interfacing, everything, and it's still quite supple. Here's the basic quick zipper bag. 2 rectangles with a zipper sandwiched in the middle. Now you'll notice I left gaps here. That's for the seam. Just makes it so much easier to turn it inside out. So I'm going to pin right sides together, sew around on 3 sides, turn it inside out. Before any of us do that, please remember, open the zipper. Otherwise, you won't be able to turn it inside out. Once you make that mistake a couple of times, you're pretty good at remembering to open the zipper. Now again, cork is like fabric. I can use pins. They say only pin in the seam line because otherwise it can leave a mark. But with this kind of pattern cork, I haven't found that to be a problem. I do use a longer seam length, 3.0 rather than 2.5. And so right close to where I had put the zipper. I might move this over, the needle over, so I have plenty of room to get the foot in next to the zipper tab. Making sure that everything stays smooth. To the corner, pivot. 1 diagonal stitch. And I'm ready to pivot. Corner, 1 diagonal stitch, pivot. Back stitch. Clip threads very close. Get them out of the way. Stitching on 3 sides. Turn it inside out. Before I do that, it's always a good idea to reduce the bulk at the corners. So I cut right across, just like that. Nothing too involved. Maybe even a little clip here in the corner. To reduce bulk. Now, the cork is really going to get smushed and squished and distorted doing this. Then it comes out just fine on the other end. Sewing with the heavy paper was a bit more involved, as you can tell, very stiff. Took a lot of shoving, pushing to get it through, and it had to be dampened, but it didn't tear. So that was good. And cork, very resilient, no problem at all. I use my blunt scissors to push out the corner, very gently, very careful. Do not want to poke a hole in my work. Anytime you have thick fabric, corners are a little tricky, little tough. So you work with them. Pull, tug. That corner still is not completely out, so some gentle pushing now with the scissors. Oop, and I'm pushing in the wrong spot. Much better. Bottom seam just needs a little bit of tugging. We want the sides and the bottom to be as square looking as possible. There you have it. Quick, easy zipper bag. I'd like to tell you about another kind of paper, but it's so fascinating. It is a natural fiber, and they've made it into a sewable fabric, and that is cork. This is real cork from cork trees in Portugal. And they don't kill the tree when they harvest it. They take a very thin layer off the outside, and then the tree will regrow. But they take a very thin layer and then attach it to a soft interfacing so that you're able to manipulate it and use it just like fabric. It used to be just natural looking cork, kind of plain. And then the fashion industry went wild with colors and designs. So here's a solid cork color with flecks of metallic silver, and then metallic flecks here in a floral print. Both of these are cork from the cork trees in Portugal, and it acts just like fabric. You can see soft, can be manipulated, and you can sew and press cork just like fabric, and you sponge it clean. It is naturally water resistant and stain resistant. Therefore, I've made another zipper bag version out of this that actually comes in, looks like a crossbody bag. It's another version of a zipper bag. It's a little more elaborate. It's a crossbody bag. But the basics are the same as what we saw before. A rectangle, but it's been shaped differently so it's more interesting. A zipper at the top. This one's lined. And then hardware put on so that you have a long crossbody strap. Here's another example of sewing paper to paper and paper to fabric. This is a journal cover that I made. And I found this paper that has a very subtle double side to it, and I used it to cut this pattern called double diamonds, which you can find on YouTube or Pinterest or any other kind of lacy design that you might want to use. The point being, the fabric shows through underneath and gives a contrast. So I have stitched down on the paper and the fabric, use this strip to sew to the fabric, and then the paper is sewn to fabric on this side. Now, obviously, this is not to be laundered, but it is a journal cover. It won't need to go in the laundry. It's very sturdy and very robust as it is, and I love the color combinations. So you can sew fabric to paper, paper to fabric, paper to paper with fabric underneath, almost any combination.